You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
I want everyone here to get one thing straight.
What's that?
This WOW World Championship, I won that all on my own. As a matter of fact, another thing that I did is I pinned the shoulders to the mat of the girl who was undefeated for 18 years, the girl who couldn't be beat, the unbeatable, the unbreakable Jungle Grrrl.
Can you believe what she's saying?
And the only reason that she had that streak is because she was never in the ring with me.
Me set the record straight, Tessa Blanchard. So it's clear that I hit your head just a little bit harder during our match because either you are seriously concussed or you have amnesia, because I believe it took two of you to get my shoulders to the mat.
Thank you, Jungle
Right,
Grrrl.
Tessa? Really? Face me one-on-one, right here, right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green, and we have yet another episode of WOW Superheroes on the review block. Following a week of them being under hiatus, they have returned. Another hour of relatively easy pro wrestling that we can watch on AXS-TV. Before we go off into the whole thing with WOW, of course, there's a couple of things you always have to get out of the way before you get into the meat of your podcast. If you are listening to this for the first time and you want to subscribe and /support the show, feel free to hit the subscribe button and wherever you are listening to this particular podcast, as you can catch it at WPN Wrestling, our website, which is the home base for everything that we do, video, audio, everything related. And wherever you find your greater podcast, you can get it, a hold of it. All you got to do is type in WPN, and it should pop right on up. I've tried it, folks. I've gone around and I've put WPN in a couple of different things, and we seem to be the only ones that's there, so it's a relatively easy find. What does WPN stand for? Women's Pro Wrestling Network, of course. So just so you know why you're putting in WPN, that is why. Speaking of WPN, if you are a Collar and Elbow fan, you need to go onto our Facebook page and click so you can get that link and to get the discount, 10% off on all purchases. Get you some nice t-shirts from the Collar and Elbow brand. All you got to do is use our code WPN and you can get 10% off of all purchases you make there. They got some new designs out, so you may want to go visit their website. Quick plug for them. And matter of fact, you probably saw it at the beginning of this program as it is. Also, before we go into the meat of it, last week I did say if you had any questions, comments, things like that, that you want to share or ask or whatever it is that you wanted to address on the air, just send it over to me. Leave a comment in one of the videos below or anything like that, and I would get to it. And there has been a comment that I want to bring up, because it's something that I talked about in the initial reviews of WOW a couple of years ago. And I say a couple of years, I know some of y'all may be new to the WOW thing, but WOW has been trying on and off for several years, dating back to 2002 to get itself up on its feet and up and running again, all the way back to after the first season of WOW had ceased. In 2001, I think Dave McClain had sought out some new investors and people to try to support it. Back in 2002, I believe Gene Simmons from KISS was one of the people that he was looking at, which shouldn't be surprising because Gene Simmons did have a little bit of a dipping of the toe in the water that is wrestling, so to speak. Of course, you know some of you longtime fans would know the Demon from WCW fame, and then the ill-fated XWF, which was another pro wrestling program that was shooting some pilot episodes, but never really quite got picked up. And now I think that was roughly around the same time frame, if I'm not mistaken. That was during the Great Wrestling Depression, if you want to call it that. That was when the old companies, WCW and ECW, died off, and we were all searching for a new replacement. And that basically came in the form of TNA and then Ring of Honor. But we're in the wrestling resurgence now, but that's neither here nor there. In any case, getting back to the point that the message came from WoW Fan, and he put this comment underneath the post or underneath the interview for WoW's Frost. Now, let's be clear. For those that haven't seen her, you're probably not going to see her. Frost came in through the 2013 revamp of WoW, I believe, and it just did not take. And after listening to this interview, which clearly he did, he pretty much probably heard the frustration in Frost's voice at that time. So I want to read his comment. And again, if you have anything that you want to add to that, if you want to send your comments in or your questions in about WoW or any other piece of wrestling, feel free. But this is what WoW Fan wrote. Interesting that they have matches that they never posted. I like 2 Frost versus Fire matches. Another match with Azukar where she unmasked her apparently. One with someone she couldn't remember. Makes me wonder how many matches they have in the can that weren't released, that were taped for seasons 2 and 3. I also totally get her frustration with how long it took them to release the matches and footage they did. I don't know what the reasons were for that, but 3 years is a very excessive wait. WoW Fan, you're absolutely right. 3 years is a very excessive wait. It so excessive, in fact, that I would say half of the roster that was in that revamped version of WoW simply just moved on. I mean, I did try to track some of them down when I was doing those interviews, when I got Frost and others from that era. But most of them have just pretty much washed their hands of wrestling entirely and just stepped away. Sunshine, I'll give you one, because she is she probably was one of the few people that came in there and I guess got herself relatively in the main event push. In fact, she was listed as, she's the first girl to get a WoW contract, for whatever that meant. And she had her first championship match and she was just squashed. And I hated that match. You can go back and listen to the review of it. I thought it was absurd. I thought it was just ridiculous that, you built this girl up. You talked about her, she's got her first contract and she's getting in the wire. She didn't even put up a fight. It was like the equivalent of those old 80s squash matches in the studio. She probably went all of 2 minutes and that was it. Done. So I didn't get the whole deal about Sunshine, but yeah, she was another one that I reached out to her, and at the time she was like, well, I'm under contract, I can't really say anything about it. So apparently there was some verbiage in the contract that prevented them from talking about it too much, I would assume, and that's at least from the ones that really cared about a contract. I really don't think Frost cared all that much, especially at that point. She had just, I don't want to say she was fed up, but maybe in her own words she was. But as I was reading that comment, here's some of the people that were in there at that time who just didn't come back. Azukar, Fire, Frenchie, Frost, Genesis, Ivy Quinn, Jade, who was a returning hero from the 2000 season, Kitty Meow, Leonina, who went on to do the announcing at Lucha Underground, and I think she's getting married to Brian Cage, I believe. Lady London, Paradise, who was another return. Razor, Santana Garrett, who did stick around for some time, but Garrett is now going on, and she's at NXT now, so she's taking a step back. Siren, Spike, Sunshine, who I just talked about, who coincidentally, after her contract ran out, I think contacted me like 2.5 years later and said she was ready for an interview. I was like, oh, okay. I just thought that was funny. I was like, why now? Really? Anyway, and Tadvik the Gamer, who did make news in recent years when she did her independent, and I stress independent, portrayal of Sister Abigail when she was trying to get a gig with WWE, and she created her own little version of Sister Abigail that she felt like would work well in the Wyatt storyline, and sent the video off to them, and I think that they were attempting to use some of that, but in essence, I mean, the long and short of that, and I don't want to get too far off track, the long and short of that whole thing with Tadvik was, I believe the WWE liked the storyline, but they didn't want her. So, and that created the bone of contention. So, I at this stage, I doubt that you're ever going to see that, because they've moved on far away from the whole Sister Abigail thing. They got the whole Firefly Funhouse, so there's no real reason to maintain Sister Abigail. But all of that to say is that, yes, in 2013, there was a lot of footage that was shot. From what I understood, there was full episodes. I want to say 2 to 3 full episodes, possibly 4, of WoW that was shot in Las Vegas. That's the first thing. So it would have filled a hour block, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But what they wound up doing with that footage, since it could not go to air on any television station, is that they basically, and I'm not saying that they used, did it because we did it, but they basically used the same formula that the WPN does, and that the episodes consist of a match. And we do that because it's YouTube. They did it because they went to their website, and it probably worked for them at that point. They can't do it anymore because it's on television. But at that time, they chopped around a lot of different things, and they got whatever story that they could. So they did make use of the footage. And to answer your question, there probably is a significant amount of that is just sitting in a hard drive somewhere. I do believe I talked to somebody about it once before. As I'm talking about it, it's kind of jogging a little bit of my memory, because there were some people that I did see in promo pictures and clips and through the interviews. All signs point towards that there was more footage that exists in a hard drive or in a can somewhere that the general public just simply will not be able to see, and mostly consisting of Wild Girls who I just named, who aren't coming back. So it's probably not going to happen just for those reasons alone. So in any case, if you have any other comments, for those that are listening out there right now, feel free to put those underneath the comment section if you're listening to this on YouTube, or if you got this on some other format through Podbean, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, etc., then shoot me the message directly either on Facebook, on the Women's Pro Wrestling Network Facebook page, and join that if you haven't already, or like it if you haven't already, or you can send it to me directly at mrgreen75@hotmail.com. I will get that, and I will read that on the air, or address it on the air one way or the other. And I also want to try one other new thing here, because I really didn't know that YouTube had a poll. But I'm interested to see what the poll is for those of you that actually watched the episode. What did you think of it? Did you think the episode was good, or did you think the episode was bad? Is it a yay or is it nay? So for those of you that actually watched the episode, leave your vote there. I'm going to put the little card at the top of the screen, and this is specific for the YouTube crowd. I don't have it on the podcast or the MP3 versions. Sorry for those that's downloading it or listening to it through that. I can't do it through there, but I can put it on the Facebook page. I can put the poll up there. If you want the poll up there, you can just give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, yes or no, whether you like it, and then we'll go over the results of that next week. So here we are. This is the third episode. And there's something about Dave McClain that I'll address at the end of this. We're just going to the episode now. We'll rope back around to it. So we begin as a championship recap at the end of the triple threat from a week. Well, I would say a week prior, but a 2 weeks prior, where the match was basically thrown out because Hazard came in and she interfered and she caused a no contest in what was supposed to be a triple threat elimination match. Now, I have already gone on record in the previous podcast saying I don't get that. I don't get it. I don't get how you go to a no contest for this one incident starting out. It wasn't like she started a melee that the referee just couldn't control. That's the first thing. It wasn't like it was a one-on-one contest that caused some sort of problems. It's a triple threat elimination match. By nature, the triple threat usually gets rid of the disqualification just because we can't disqualify one person and cost the other two. So in that regard, it didn't make a lot of sense to me, but, they got their own story to tell. So we move on. The show starts off in the way that seemingly the show starts off every week, with Tessa Blanchard coming out there interrupting David McClain, giving her heel shtick. I'm the champion, and this, that, and the other, and you need it, nobody's better than me, blah, 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 blah. Somewhere in there, she goes into, and I beat the undefeatable and unbreakable Jungle Grrrl. I still do not like that. Why? Because they keep promoting it like Jungle Grrrl was unbeaten for 18 years. It's absurd. She was not unbeaten for 18. Okay, all right. Let's scratch that. Because I guess on the surface of it, she was. But when you pull back that layer, she didn't wrestle for 15 of them. So, yes, she was undefeated for 18 years, but it doesn't match what they're trying to sell you. Now, and let me be clear. I love me some Jungle Grrrl. I absolutely do. Had her on the show twice. She's a sweetheart of a woman. She's a genetic wonder. I just don't think that how they portray her is doing her any favors in this environment. We are in a world now where it is just as easy as a click of a button to go in there and see that, hey, this didn't take place. She didn't wrestle all these years. They don't have the footage to back up a 18-year undefeated streak. They just don't. What I would say in place of that would get the point across just as well is just say, hey, Jungle Grrrl was the big dog here. She was undefeated. She had not been beaten in any incarnation of WoW, which is that I would rather them go with that, which isn't altogether true because she was beaten in 2000. But how many people are going to go back and look at 2000 and see that? Since the year 2000 till now, she hadn't been beaten in a WoW ring. So just word it differently to where it doesn't come off like, hey, she hadn't been beaten in 18 years. Because that paints the picture of Asuka or Goldberg or EC3 when he was unbeaten for 2. It paints the picture of those people who went on a definitive undefeated streak. And she doesn't have that. She has a great streak within WoW, but it's not a definitive, it's not an undisputed undefeated streak. And it sounds good for Tessa to be able to say it, but it's not altogether true. It's not altogether false, but it's not altogether true either. And I think I used the example last week that it would be like me saying I'm undefeated in boxing. Well, yeah, I'm undefeated in boxing because I don't box. So, I would like it changed to something more sensible. I know they're not going to do it just because I said it, but that's just one of those, use the Family Guy emojis, one of them things that grind my gears. So anyway, she drops that, which of course you call out, you bring up Jungle Grrrl's name, is basically calling out. Jungle Grrrl comes out. She confronts Tessa, essentially challenging her there on the spot saying, well, hey, we could do this right now. You and me, one-on-one for the Wild Championship, which I thought that makes perfect sense coming out of her mouth because she never lost in a one-on-one environment. She never had the opportunity to get a rematch in a one-on-one environment. So it makes sense that she would put her name out there against her, which Tessa seemingly was willing to do. And this is what brings out now the Monsters of Madness, who are Havok and Hazard, or Jessica Havok and Nevaeh. So they come out. Dave McClain's doing the no, we can't do that. We're not doing this now. We're not going to have a match, blah, blah, blah. And then Tessa is about to make the hasty exit once again, and who's coming out to stop her but the Beast. You can see it coming a mile away, but predictability doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. It works, and it sets the Beast up. And she comes off like a star here. I have to give her credit because they shoot her in such a way that she looks broad, she looks muscular, she looks powerful. She is all those things, but they also play it up on screen. She looks the part. And she gets in there, and it does feel in a wild sense like a big deal. You got Havok, you got Hazard, you got Jungle Grrrl, you got the Beast, and all of them look like that in their own right, physically intimidating. So seeing them all jockeying for the position, well, Hazard's not really jockeying for the position of being the world's champion, but she is seconding Havok. So seeing them all kind of here jockeying for position for the championship, it's a good look. I enjoyed it. And so now you have Dave McClain, and we're going to go for an old wrestling trope in here. It's like, hey, we can't have that match today, but I tell you what you can have. You, Jungle Grrrl, and you, Beast, have a common enemy now. You might have a common goal. Why don't we place you two together and you go against the Monsters of Madness? So we see a setup for the main event match of the night, which I also said last week. So they did it. So, just in that regard, I was like, they did a good job in setting the tone that you knew was going to come across, that being that we were going to get this tag team match. We saw it when Jungle Grrrl saved the Beast in the main event segment last week, and we move on to this. So following that, we got a promo for the next match, which is Nikki Krampus and Princess Aussie, who is Simone Sherry, if you're looking for her on the independent circuit. Krampus may be the most animated presentation that I've seen on WoW so far, with the fur-trimmed outfit and the hooves for boots and stuff like that, and the mask that she comes out with. It's it's almost like a step or two above Mantar, but, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? This is one of those moments where I'm like, if that took place in the WWE tomorrow, fans would lose their mind. But because it's in WoW, it gets a pass. So you have Krampus, who's coming out there. She's represented by Sophia Lopez. I want to see more out of the managers in this show. I don't really get the chance to know them. Lopez is probably the closest that we've got to really kind of meet a manager, so to speak, but I want to see more out of them. Like, give me a segment where we're just talking to the managers. Or at least a profile on them or something like that. Even if you have to put it on Facebook, just, profile the managers. Because to me right now, they're just a body. They're just people that come out there and just wave around and cheat occasionally, but we don't really know them. Not like, but let's give credit to where credit's due in that WoW has kind of gone against the curve and assigned managers because, where the WWE goes, the wrestling industry generally follows. And once they decided that we don't want managers, they just kind of killed them off. But so WoW deserves some credit in that they at least used them. I just wish that they were profiled more so we understood who and what they are. And like I said, Sophia Lopez is probably the one that has the most personality underneath her because she had a little bit more time. You know, she's, you know, the world's greatest attorney, represented Caged Heat. Now last week she represented Serpentine, who we also know as Thunder Rosa. And now she's representing Krampus. So she has her assumed stable, I guess, if you want to call it that. But then again, Caged Heat is nowhere to be found. So I guess I'll talk about that later. So we have that. And we've got Princess Aussie. This was basically I don't want to say a showcase for Krampus, but it was essentially there to introduce Krampus to the WoW audience. So I think we knew what was going on here, or at least I did when I saw Krampus come out. Despite that, she wasn't the overwhelming bully. Aussie got offense in, and she was presented as, I'm about to win this. You know, she's going up to the top rope, and Lopez grabs her foot. She's trying to keep her from going, and you know, then the referee's getting on her and all that stuff like that, and Lopez manages to slide in Aussie's super huge bamboo sticks under the ring apron for Krampus to use. Now, how the referee didn't see or hear this, I don't know, but he didn't, and Krampus hits her with the bamboo sticks in the stomach, and she catches her with what she calls a happy holiday, which is, you know, like a Uranagi slam. And that's it. Nikki Krampus, let me pronounce it right, Nikki Krampus wins the match. So she gets her win in. Lopez has one of her representatives win. I'm not always entirely sure if Sophia Lopez is babyface or heel. I mean, I could have swore I saw her coming out there shaking hands with some of the fans or whatnot. And they never really tell a story about her being disingenuous or anything along those lines. So sometimes it's hard for me to tell. I mean, when she does that, but then yet and still she'll cheat for her client. And last week she was the de facto babyface because they were in the ring with Tessa Blanchard. So, I mean, there are these occasions when I'm like, I don't know what to make of Sophia Lopez. But, you know, I guess it is what it is. And that hopefully they'll iron it out. And these are the reasons why I wish they had some profile. It ain't got to be on the show. People will go to the social media page, put it on Facebook, put it on your website, put it somewhere. You know, but let people know who these characters are. So after that is done, while they're still in the ring, mind you, the lights go out, they come back on, Holiday and Siren the Voodoo Queen. And this is not the same Siren as the one mentioned earlier. They come and they take Aussie away. Just like that. No help. Nobody comes out there to try to rescue Princess Aussie. Not even her tag team partner from the week prior, who was in the same building that night. I mean, you know, it would be kind of weird if she wasn't there or if it was portrayed as not there, but her partner literally came out like the following match. So, I don't know. It didn't seem doesn't seem like the babyfaces stick out for the babyfaces here, or at least if you're a babyface on the lower end of the hierarchy, you're just on your own. So my guess here is that perhaps we'll see the Voodoo Queen perform something on Princess Aussie and maybe make her part of her army. I don't know, or something along those lines. That's just a guess. Like I said, I don't have any inside track to that. That's just my interpretation. I was like, why else would they take her? So I don't know. The next segment. We got Temptress, who some people will remember as Katie Lee Burchell, or Winner from Impact Wrestling, taking on Raina Reyes, who is Giselle Shaw. I could not pronounce her name last week for the life of me, or the last review, but that is Giselle Shaw. So we have that. We got Dagger coming out with Temptress, her tag team partner, who... Again, you know, we'll address the tag team tournament. Like, why are there no brackets? Why has this not been informed yet? I mean, we could take guesses at who's supposed to be in it. I would assume the Vengeful Vixens, Temptress, and Dagger are in it at some point, but hell, we don't know. And they're not trying to unveil that at any point. It's just like you just figure it out as you go. And it seems like this is going to take forever when it's going to take one match per week. But I don't know. So anyway, we've got Dagger, and we got not Dagger, sorry, Temptress, and we got Raina Reyes, which is and was a good technical matchup. They were going move for move. They were exchanging holds. I think I used the term before. I was like, it's hard for me to discount a match where two of the ladies have maybe, I'm not going to say extensive training, but they certainly came into the promotion with training underneath their belt already. Giselle Shaw and Winter both have wrestling training already. So it's not a big surprise that they would be able to hold a decent match with one another. It's just no shocker at all that they could do this. So you have them two, and they're going in, and they're doing the exchange. Meanwhile, on commentary, for whatever reason, Dave McClain is talking about, the main event happening, saying that it's taking place because they got a common goal, which, like, hey, 15 minutes ago, you made them in the main event together. You told them to do it. It's not like they had a common goal. They actively were arguing about it on screen. So I didn't get why the narrative suddenly changed to, like, hey, we're the Beast and Jungle Grrrl, they're forming a bond here, and they're like, they're not forming a bond. You told them to do it. But anyway, that was just a little side note that happened during the course of this match that I had to take note of. At some point in the match, Reyes picks up the speed and begins to showcase. Temptress takes control again. It started to get a little bit more aggressive at this point, which is good. And again, very enjoyable. Well, I should have said Temptress took control after the distraction from Dagger because she did the heel thing. Got to stick her nose into business, and then Temptress comes in and starts to be in control of the match again. She seemingly could have gotten the win, but she has a very laxed cover, which, of course, Reyes is able to kick out of. Temptress is beating her, and Reyes stops this by catching her foot. And this is probably one of the better moments in the match, the close-up of Reyes as she catches the foot and rises to her feet, like staring at Temptress in her eyes as if to say, all right, that's all I'm taking. And I mean, I found that it was a nice moment. I have to give Wild credit for that. I know I get on them sometimes about cameras and switching back and forth and this, that, and the other, but they actually gave that a little bit of time for that to play and to register with the viewers. I was like, I enjoyed this. And Reyes finished it off with a Scots Twister from the top rope for the win. And unlike her partner earlier, the attempt to be distracted, to be caught by the outside force, that being Dagger, did not work. She actually kicked her off, put her down to the floor, and then she came off with the Sky Twister press from the top rope, nailing Temptress 1, 2, 3. She wins the match. So there we have it. Whereas she did not do well in the tag team tournament, in singles tournament, well, in the singles match, there's no singles tournament. In the singles match, Raina Reyes, the former was it Azúcar? No, that's not right. I'm picking up somebody from Azteca. I was thinking about the lady from a couple of seasons ago, but her former identity is shed, and now she's going on as Raina Reyes. So there we have it. She moves forth. The next segment, the Psycho Sisters video package, where they talk about essentially the history between how they all came together and the introduction of Mesmera, who looks like she could legitimately be Harlow O'Hara's sister, Fury, on the show. So all in all, I mean, the general recap of this is that, and I don't know if they want you to take it literally or not, because in a literal sense it sounds kind of out there. But Mesmera was underground, for never seen the light of day, something along those lines. And then she finally came out to the LA underground and she saw something beautiful. She saw violence. I guess somewhere along the line she came out in the middle of a gang war or something to that effect. And she originally got into a fight with the other Psycho Sisters. And because of her zeal and her willingness to stick with it, they basically invited her into the gang. So they kind of present this as a gang more so than they do a tag team, I suppose. So Mesmera, Fury, Razor, they are now the Psycho Sisters, and I guess coming from this, not legitimate biological sisters, but Psycho Sisters in the term of the group. And they are promoting a match from Mesmera next week. They're saying, hey, all right, tune in next week to see Mesmera make her debut. So that now begs the question, if we have a 3-person team for the Psycho Sisters, which, I mean, it's hard for me to say they're my pick to win the tag team titles, but WoW seems to be putting a lot behind them at this point. If they do, will they do it in the vein of a Freebird type rule? I know that's kind of going back there, but I guess the newer version of that would be the New Day, where they have any 2 of the 3 that can jump in and defend at any given time. So I wonder will they do it along those lines, considering if Mesmera is any good or not. I think of the 3, she may be the only one that is a WoW original girl, whereas Razor and Fury both have a history outside of WoW, as Harlow O'Hara, who basically is an entirely different persona when she's out there. But then again, so is her partner Sarah the Rebel. So, I mean, they're like completely different if you see them on the independent circuit. Harlow in particular, she's the priestess. On WoW, she's a nut. So it's just interesting. That's just a little food for thought. I wonder if they'll make it some sort of package team that we can switch and swap at will. So the next thing that we got here, the next segment, another video package, but this one is about the team of the Disciplinarian and Abilene Maverick and how Samantha Smart brought them together. And within this, I mean, they basically showing Abilene worming her way out of a match with Steffi Slays, and they're showing the Disciplinarian losing in a effort against Steffi Slays. Not only are they showing her losing, but they're highlighting the fact that it's the first time Steffi Slays has won ever. So you got the Disciplinarian, who, I guess we want to take her as a threat, but now we're like, hey, and she lost to Steffi Slays, the person who couldn't beat anybody up until right then. So I thought that was interesting that that was the video package, and that was kind of introduced. I think I might have just skipped over that part if nothing else, but that's just me. So now we got this team that has been created to enter the tag team tournament underneath the guide or the guidance of Samantha Smart, which, again, going back to that first statement, I really wish we knew more about these people. The only thing I know about Samantha Smart is that her copy and paste works pretty good on Google, because whatever it is that she's posting up on Facebook and Instagram in particular, I'm like, all right, I know that she ain't just sit there and, the miles from the sun to the earth or this, that, and da-da-da. I was like, I know she ain't just spout that out just on her own. Like, I can go on Google and copy and paste the answer. But, if you're going to sell her as this IQ superior, then give her something to let that show. Maybe it's asking too much. I don't know. Let me know what you think, man. Do you agree? Do you agree that Samantha Smart and Sophia Lopez and whoever the heck else they got as a manager that should be highlighted a little bit just so we can kind of know who they are? I'd like to know that if I'm alone in that or not. All right, so here we are. We got the tag team match. We know that is for advancement in the tag team tournament. We still have no brackets. We have no brackets for the tag team. We don't know how many teams are in this, how long this is supposed to take, who's in it, nothing. Just week by week, it's like, all right, we got another tag team match. So, I don't know. The Disciplinarian Abilene Maverick versus Sassy Massey and Chantilla Chella, a.k.a. Raylan and Alicia Edwards. And also, if we're talking about the Disciplinarian, a.k.a. Robin Reed, and Abilene Maverick, the former Barbie Hayden, who has officially made her retirement from taking independent bookings, I guess. So now it is all Abilene Maverick. There's only Abilene now. So we had this. The match looks good. Same rules apply as what I just said for Temptress and Raina Reyes. It is hard to have a bad match with girls who came into that company already ready to rock and roll. And these four are already ready to rock and roll. They delivered. I mean, I enjoyed the tag team match, really. I mean, the only thing that I didn't care for in the tag team match, but I say this with all tag team matches, is when they have that double tag thing. We're both down. We both reach up at the same time. We both made the tag simultaneously. It's not a hot tag for me. I was like, let's put a little bit more effort into it, but that's just my personal opinion. But they look good. The timing was great. I like the deal they did with Massey's in the ring, and she charges into not her. Disciplinarian charges into the turnbuckle to hit her, but Massey gets out of the way. But Abilene comes in and spears on the apron. So it was good time and good teamwork. The disciplinarian and Abilene Maverick at the start of this were doing the heel thing. They were taking the beating and making the baby faces look good until they could turn it around at that moment that I just talked about. So they have all of that. They're doing good. They're making great tag team maneuvers like the axe handle sidewalk slam combo by the heels. I thought that was pretty cool. It all did fine until, of course, it broke down. These referees in WoW are terrible. They don't even try to present the idea that they're trying to get control of the match. Like, once all four people just get in there, then just forget it. Just let them do what they're doing. And just let them run around. They'll work it out. They'll finish it up later. I don't know. So then the referee just kind of stands off to the side and lets them peel out. Like, I don't see him counting. I don't see him yelling at nobody, say, hey, get back out of the ring. None of that. Just let them knock each other around and then let it clear up. So we have that. They had the little spiel. The disciplinarian gets put out of action on the outside. Samantha Smart's out there trying to get her up to her feet. Meanwhile, Abilene's yelling or trying to get her partner. She gets taken back in by Sassy Massey. Still not very fond of that name, but, I guess it'll grow on me. She is taken back in by Sassy Massey, and between Sassy and Chantilla, she gets hit with a complete shot cutter combo. Very nice finish. And 1, 2, 3, Abilene Maverick gets beaten. She takes the pinfall, and that's that. My notes as I watched this was why. Like, why did we see this video package? Why did we have them set up and presented as these big stars and all that stuff? Like, because they gave them such a grand, cinematic, beautiful package. And then the next thing you know, she's on her back looking at the lights. Like, why did we do this? Shouldn't we have done the video package on the other two or something like that? I mean, wouldn't that, maybe I'm asking too much, but maybe that wouldn't have made more sense to, like, hey, let's talk about Sassy Massey and Chantilla Chella, that they can go in there and do their whole deal, and hey, look at that, they won. It would have made a little bit more sense, I think. But I'm always willing to give the benefit of the doubt to the story, and the story may be something over the course of time. It may move forth and whatnot. But that was my first thought. As soon as I saw that pinfall, I was like, what the heck was this? After that match, there's a video package promoting the main event. Video packages here are always pretty nice. Cannot knock the video package or the work done by the crew backstage, other than when they want to go cut in the middle of a match. But when I see that, I'm assuming that the match is not overly good. The next segment, a vignette backstage, where we see an argument between Abilene Maverick and the disciplinarian. The disciplinarian is understandably upset as she didn't get pinned, but Abilene Maverick is basically saying, hey, this is your fault. Where were you and all that good stuff. She more or less she got double teamed which is true, because not only did she get hit with a double team maneuver, but she was double pinned. Both Sassy Massey and Chinchilla were on top of him, and that constituted a pin somehow. So, that's one of them things that if the babyface does it, is perfectly fine. If the heels did it, it would have been considered cheating, but that's neither here nor there. So she's, they're carrying on with each other. Samantha Smart does a poor job of breaking this up. I mean, she comes in and she spouts out a couple of big words and, saying how she was going to pull this thing together. Some nonsense like that, where they still stormed off from each other anyway. I was like, well, after seeing this, I guess that they could further their storyline and they could continue to have some version of a partnership. But my next question and my next note there was, well, why continue it? Because clearly this is the first time that they've tagged with each other. If we're going to believe the video package that we just saw, Samantha Smart assigned them to each other. They weren't friends. They didn't have any sort of history together as far as Wild Universe is concerned. They didn't want to, hey, we should go after the tag team titles. They didn't even have that kind of conversation. It was just Samantha Smart decided to put Abilene Maverick and the disciplinary together, and they did it and they lost. So why continue this partnership? What is there to gain between either one of them doing? They are knocked out of the tournament. They're not going to, even if they wanted to team up with each other, they are not going to see a tag team title shot probably for the better portion of a year, considering how long this tag team tournament is scheduled. Seemingly scheduled to go on. It looks like it's going to be a while before we even see tag team champions, period, much less a challenger to that. So what point does this serve? Why? If anything, Samantha Smart should be trying to get the disciplinarian a title shot at the Wild Championship, or, using some of this higher intellect to elevate the disciplinarian some kind of way. Abilene Maverick doesn't need that. She has already proven as a character that she is fine on her own, more or less. So, I just didn't get it personally. And, perhaps as it unrolls a little bit further, it'll make sense. But if it doesn't go somewhere, if this little vignette doesn't go somewhere, if it's just a standalone vignette out of the clear blue just for the sake of having a vignette, then it is going to come across to me as a waste of time. The final segment of the show was the main event. The Monsters of Madness, Havok and Hazard, taking on Jungle Grrrl and The Beast. And this comes across as fairly interesting for all the reasons I mentioned before. Is the physical stature of all four ladies involved, specifically the three, not to push Hazard out of the equation, because she has a presence about her as well. But you got a powerhouse in The Beast, you got a genetic marvel and Jungle Grrrl. You got a giant more or less in women's wrestling, and Jessica Havok or Havok. It's hard for me not to say Jessica Havok. I'm used to it, but I will try. In the Wild universe, she is just Havok. So yeah, I mean, it is interesting to see in those terms. The commentators continue to play this up as if it was the choice of Jungle Grrrl and the Beast, completely ignoring the fact that David McLean made this match on his own. And if you have DVR'd this or anything of that nature, just go back to that opening segment and look at them. They look like they didn't want a team. And as I said, this is a wrestling trope that we've seen before. It's the unwilling tag team partners. We're put together through circumstances that we can't control, but in the midst of us trying to, tag up, I'm going to outdo you. And that's basically what happened here. This reminds me very much, and yes, I'm digging back here a number of years, but this is one of the first times I remember seeing it. Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior taking on the Nasty Boys at the SummerSlam Spectacular in '92. Not SummerSlam the pay-per-view, but SummerSlam Spectacular, which of course led, and they did this leading into Savage versus the Warrior, which I bring this up, for obvious reasons. But you had Savage, you had the Warrior, the unwilling partners against a well-oiled tag team. But even as such, both of them were beating the tar out of the Nasty Boys. But even though they weren't cooperating with each other, they're tagging themselves in and out and stuff like that, and slapping each other for the tag. So in this particular instance, you have the tag team partners that are forced into the match. And that scenario plays out similar to what I just described, in that the Beast tags herself in. Just once Jungle Grrrl gets close enough, it's smack, okay, I'm in, you're out. And for the most part, now there was portions of this where, of course, Havok and Hazard did show some control. But for the most part, it felt like this was the Beast and it was Jungle Grrrl. They had this thing, showing that, well, I don't want to use the animals reference that Dave McLean like having it, the Beast and Jungle Grrrl, I guess natural selection or whatever. I'm expecting some sort of jungle pun in the following weeks, but we see them at least, what was it? I want to say at least two to three times we see that aggressive tag. Get out, I'm in, slap you on the back, or I grab your hand and slap it myself, and I get in and do all that. And they, basically when they do these things, they go in and they clean house. Now, the Beast did get taken over for a while. Like I said, Havok and Hazard did have their moment to shine. They weren't just getting beat up, nonstop. But if I were looking at this and I was saying, all right, who is illustrating dominance here, we got to go with Beast and we got to go with Jungle Grrrl. So with that, and we have the tag team partners in dispute, because they're doing their, I'm better than you, without saying it, they're doing their better than you thing. Hazard goes out and she gets a chair, and she blatantly uses it, and she gets the DQ. So the winners of the match by disqualification are Jungle Grrrl and the Beast. But now let's rewind this a little bit here, in that I think it was Havok that had a Boston Crab on the Beast. And the Beast is powering out of this Boston Crab. She is, using her clear physical strength to get up out of this. But at the same time, Jungle Grrrl is trying to protect the match, protect her partner. So she comes in and she gives Havok a drop kick across the side of the head. Excuse me, not the back, the side of the head. And that is what puts this in motion. That is where the dispute comes in, like as if to say the Beast were telling her, I didn't need your help. Jungle Grrrl's like, well, I was trying to help you, trying to do the match. So, you had that moment. And now we bring it back up to speed where Hazard goes out. She gets the chair while they're arguing with each other, and she smacks one of them and gets disqualified. So that is where we get the disqualification win for the Beast and Jungle Grrrl. However, as they are being awarded the match and raising their hands and whatnot, real quick, Jungle Grrrl grabs the chair off the mat and hits the Beast in the ribs, just bam, And as soon as that happens, okay, now you got people breaking them up and make sure that that a fight does not break out. So, on the surface of it, you would say, "Oh man, Jungle Grrrl's turning heel." I don't know if I would go that far to say she's turning heel, rather than in the context of the story, these two still don't get along. As far as Jungle Grrrl is concerned, the Beast is the reason that I am not the Wild Champion. She powerbombed me, which put me down, and Tessa Blanchard took advantage of it. So it took two of them to beat me, as she said earlier in the show. Beast certainly feels like she should be next in line, and Jungle Grrrl basically is the obstacle in her way to being the champion. So we have that. And like I said, in the context of it, I don't think that it's a heel turn out of Jungle Grrrl. I just think that they both are very distrusting and aggressive towards each other, and that spirit of competition that they have basically illustrated between the two of them is taking full bore. And now we are setting something up between the two of them. So my next assumption, as I brought up the SummerSlam Spectacular, that's hard to say sometimes, of 1992, and that's a long time ago, between Savage and the Warrior being paired off as partners only for them to wrestle against each other at the pay-per-view, my next thought is this sets up a match. I mean, that would seem to be the logical direction, that Jungle Grrrl and the Beast, at this point, even though they were forced into being tag team partners right here, should be squared up and having to have a match with each other one-on-one. Finally, I don't think they've had the one-on-one confrontation yet. They've had the three-way, but we haven't had that Jungle Grrrl Beast match, and I think that this would set it up. As far as Havok, I mean, at this point, the story seems to be edging her out. It appears that she's just almost like a third wheel, because she has a partner. She has Hazard. And if she goes after the World's Championship, where does that leave the Monsters of Madness as a tag team? Now, granted, she could go after it and she could lose and they can move on, but I don't really see a place for her in this main event scene right now, unless she gets another shot one-on-one, and she already had one. Of the three mentioned, she had a shot at Tessa Blanchard last season. She lost, and she's still complaining she wants another shot, which as a heel I guess she should do, but still, having the both of them there, I would think that the natural thing would be to place them into the tag team tournament. And again, I have no idea who else is supposed to be in this tournament, how it's going to mix up or what have you. But I mean, we can take a couple of guesses. We can try to surmise a few people here and there, or a few teams here and there. As I just stated, the Monsters of Madness, perhaps they're going to go in. I would think so. I mean, they are an established team. The Vengeful Vixens, Temptress, and Dagger, I would think that they would be involved in it in some kind of way. Who else do we have here? I mean, who else is there? We have to eliminate Abilene Maverick and the Disciplinarian. They lost. Faith Alliance and Lana Starr did announce going into the tournament, so we have to wait to see how that's going to go. The Bully Busters have already been eliminated. Sassy Massey and Chantilla Chella are still in. They did win, and they will advance. The Psycho Sisters won, and they should advance. Holiday and Siren, I think they're in it, so they should advance. I may need to write these out and come up with my own bracket and see, because that's probably the only way that we're actually going to see brackets is if I do it myself. Who else do we have here? Who else is on the wild roster that could just suddenly show up and be in a tag team tournament? I don't perceive the Beast or Jungle Grrrl as, hey, well, let's do it again and let's be in a tag team tournament. But Jesse Jones and Amber O'Neal. All right, we saw Jesse Jones last episode walk off with Amber O'Neal, and they posted up a little video on I believe it was the Instagram, where Amber O'Neal is kind of hanging out with Jesse Jones, and she's I guess getting her back down to her roots, where she's asking for champagne and Jesse brings her moonshine, stuff like that. So that could be a tag team. That's possible. Fire and Adrenaline. I know that they have since partnered up outside of WoW, so that could be a potential team as well. If I am going with the theory that the manager would unify somebody, perhaps we'll see Serpentine and Nikki Krampus. Now, I will say, in her Instagram, they spell it Krampus, Krampus. On the TV show, they spell it Krump, Krumpas. So I don't know what the deal with that is specifically, but just a little side note there. And I think that may do the entirety of the tag team tournament, which brings me back around to this. It is my understanding that the Cage Heat may not be involved with WoW this season, if at all. From what I understand, I mean, I know that the logistics of getting one member of Cage Heat out, getting the team together in general is becoming, I guess, challenging to do. You have one member that stays in LA, the other one that lives in Atlanta, which, I mean, let's be honest, it should not be as difficult as that for a while, because I know for a fact that they fly people in from Atlanta all the time. Well, I'm not going to say all the time, but at least for the tapings. They have flown people in for those tapings from as far as Florida and Georgia and I think the Carolinas. And just because you're a tag team does not mean that you're supposed to be living in the same city necessarily. I mean, the Rock and Roll Express, those guys still tag up to this day, and they don't stay in the same city. And one of them stays in, I think, South Carolina. The other one lives in Georgia. So, when somebody calls them, when Ring of Honor calls and New Japan and all these other promotions that called them up, and they do still get calls. Believe me, I've seen the booking sheet myself. Okay, them guys work. That's a side note, but they work. When they get the call, that the company sends the tickets. They're like, hey, they want them both. They got to pay for them both. That's just the way it goes. But in WoW's defense, that may not be a choice for them to make. I know during some of these earlier hiatuses when Cage Heat was there and they came in for those earlier tapings, because let's not forget, the tag team tournament officially was supposed to start last season. It was when they lost the championships to begin. Well, I guess technically that's season before last. The Cage Heat lost the titles, and not Cage Heat, sorry, the All-American Girls at the time lost the titles. Cage Heat took them, but then the titles went up in dispute. So that was the birth of the tag team tournament. Cage Heat was supposed to be a part of that, and they're not. So since that time, which I guess would be, was it 2 years? And that also goes back to the comment left earlier about WoW fan on our page, on our channel, excuse me. That presents a problem because life goes on, man. You know, and there lies the issue as it relates to WoW. Life goes on. The young lady's name who played Dealt a Lot of Pain or performed as Dealt a Lot of Pain, Joanne D. I believe at this stage, acting may be the forefront of her career. And being dealt a lot of pain may no longer be the thing that she is pushing to do. That is unfortunate if that's the case. Now, I'm just giving this to you as, as I understand the situation. I mean, I may get some further news or, that can clarify. But again, I'm saying this as a take it with a grain of salt scenario. I know that they have not been listed on the WoW media sheet. So for whatever reason, Cage Heat is not on there, which I find that a little bit disappointing. I thought Cage Heat in a tag team sense should be what Jungle Grrrl is now, or at least what I view Jungle Grrrl as the legacy act of WoW. The one piece of the puzzle for their division that still gives you some sort of connectivity to what WoW was. Even though they've had to grow up, figuratively and literally, in order to exist in the WoW's new format, they could still be there. They could have a purpose, if you will, in the WoW universe. But again, getting one half of Cage Heat out there may present the problem. I don't know if being part of that team anymore is a high priority. Like I said, I think acting is pretty much taking that role. But that said, I don't see why Loka would have to suffer for that necessarily. If you do not want to replace Dealt a Lot of Pain as a member of Cage Heat, then give a storyline to explain it away, or at least give something to explain away the fact that Cage Heat is no longer there. Like, there was no goodbye, there was no send off, there was none of that stuff like that. They just vanished. They're just done. That for whatever reason they're just out the door, assumably. From what I also am understood that the owner of WoW is supposed to be a big fan of the Cage Heat team. So I mean, I'm sure if she wanted it bad enough, if she could toss out enough money and make it happen, because I know if there's enough money being thrown, Dealt a Lot of Pain will make an appearance. But the question is, how big a fan of it are you, Jeannie Buss? So how big a fan are you to get that team back together or put them back on your television or bring them back next season or whatever? How big a fan of Cage Heat are you to do that? I would suggest at least enough to get them a final season or somewhere where they can bow out or something like that. And it ain't hard to do. This idea that we didn't, have a storyline or angle that we could present to get Loka through a season without Delta is, I'm not going to say it's absurd, but you ain't thinking hard enough. If you haven't come up with something, you ain't thinking hard enough. I will say, and I wasn't going to, go that. I told Loka that I could give you a storyline for you off of that would get Cage Heat back on TV inside of a day or two, cover the entire season, explain Delta, explain the split, and explain you on your own and or in a new team all in one swoop. Like, it's not difficult. And, if that's what you want, just tell me. but it's not difficult to do. She should be on that show. She's right there, and she's been loyal to it. And that's just a personal side note for me, is that I do believe Loka, if nothing else, deserves being on that show as a representative of Cage Heat, and just work it so that, we understand why Delta isn't there. And that leaves the door open. It gives you an out. And if anything, that should have been the unwilling partner scenario. That there. Pairing Loco with anybody else on that roster just so she has the opportunity to get the tag team titles that she basically never lost. I'm just saying. Now there's a little bit more to the story than that, but that's basically the nuts and bolts of it. Take of that what you will, wow. You should do something for Cage Heat. Anyway, that is a part of it. One other thing I want to address just briefly before we conclude this, because we have reviewed the bulk of that show, and I remember that the poll is there. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think? Yay or nay? Did you like the show? Did you not? Just hit it up, and I'll read the results of that later on the next review. Hopefully, I won't have two split between Facebook and YouTube. But there is a clip of the interview that David McClain had with Dish Network on their Facebook page, I believe. Yeah, it's on their Facebook page. So you can go on their Facebook page and you can scroll down and you can find it. But and I'm gonna take a little bit of that audio and stick it in here so you can hear exactly what he had to say.
And how have you seen wrestling evolve and now into Women of Wrestling?
It's well, obviously, since I was there, it's a bigger production and a bigger theatrical presentation. And women's wrestling, of course, is grown leaps and bounds, even specifically in the last 10 years. And as I noted, due to Jeannie Buss's influence. But now the women really are center stage for the first time. The real champion of women's professional wrestling is this person, Jeannie Buss. Everyone knows her as the owner of the LA Lakers, but she also is the owner of WOW Women of Wrestling. And without Jeannie and her passion, a whole group of women would not be able to do what they want to do.
The line in there that really kind of stood out to me, and I say this with all due respect to David McClain and Jeannie Buss, and this isn't verbatim, like I said, I put, if you didn't hear it already, I'm the audio's in this so that you can hear the clip. Without Jeannie Buss, there would be an entire generation of women who wouldn't be able to live their dream, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. I think it is somewhat misleading. And that, yes, Jeannie Buss has supported women's wrestling through WOW. And I think that is the key element there that has to be said. Jeannie Buss supported women's wrestling through WOW, not women's wrestling in general. There, statements like that are those statements of we exist in an island unto ourselves, or we exist in our own universe, and that's fine because as a company, you're supposed to do that. I understand it. People got on the WWE, that whole marketing term, the WWE universe. Well, they do that because oftentimes they don't acknowledge other stuff. They do now because, it ain't going to hurt them. And they acknowledge the things that they are partnered with, like Evolve and Ring of Honor, sometimes, and so on and so forth. But by and large, when they choose not to acknowledge something, they just don't acknowledge it. It doesn't exist. As far as the WWE Universe is concerned, that doesn't exist. WOW is like that to some degree. When they say statements like that, like Jeannie Buss was responsible for women's wrestling, that is saying that all the other wrestling around outside of WOW didn't exist. Even though in the same breath, they'll say, Tessa Blanchard wrestled on the Independents and she won a bunch of stuff. Jungle Grrrl wrestled on the Independents. And, they'll talk up the use of independence as it relates to building up somebody that exists inside of WoW, and that's fine also. I get the purpose behind that because it gives them more pedigree. It gives them a lineage. It gives them history. And it sounds better. It sounds better that they just walk in and they have something underneath them, like that. There's a lineage behind me. I was trying to find the right words that you could possibly go out and find. It's kind of like somebody gets drafted to the NFL. You can go and you can look up their college career or what they did before that, and then you can say, man, that dude is a hoss. Look at him. He was playing this good when he was 18. I can imagine how he's going to do when he's in the NFL. Kind of the same theory there. She was great when she was wrestling with such and such. I can't imagine how she's doing it. But in this statement, it is, and maybe this is just how I took it, is presented as if Jeannie Buss didn't step in, women's wrestling, the people that got involved in it, like they wouldn't be able to live their dreams. They wouldn't have the opportunity to wrestle, if Jeannie Buss didn't somehow make WoW exist. Which again, I find that just a little misleading, a little bit. Saying that blatantly ignores your shines, your shimmers, your WSUs, your girl fights, your rise, and any number of all women promotions that sprouted up all across the country. I'm not even going to present the WPN in that, because I'm not, we don't push a promotion. Now we highlight it, but we're not a promotion. But all these other little independent promotions that have sprouted up, that have gone out of their way to focus on and present and book all women's shows, to Women's Revolution Wrestling. I mean, all of that. To say that, well, if Jeannie wasn't here, this wouldn't exist. That's a little bit hard for me to swallow. And again, I say that all due respect to David McClain. All due respect to Jeannie Buss, because I know that he's supposed to sing the praises of Jeannie Buss. I know she's supposed to be presented as, the savior of women's wrestling, as, from the WoW narrative. But I also understand that it is their narrative. Their narrative is that, WoW is the platform for women's wrestling in this country, if not the world. And that's great. That's fine. But I also look at it like this. How many of them girls came or existed before WoW got their feet underneath them? How many of those places did they work before WoW, while WoW was still struggling to find a TV deal? There's a lot of them that's on that roster right now that have worked multiple locations and continue to work multiple locations, during those WoW hiatuses. WoW doesn't run all year round. They did a TV taping last year, and that got cut up into the shows. And meanwhile, those girls was out getting booked elsewhere. Same thing now. They just did, as I'm recording this, I think they just had a taping not but a week ago. And they wrapped up the season for season 2. So now all the footage is there. All the matches are there. But, what are they going to do in between that? They're going to go booking themselves for other places. They're going to go back to the OVWs and the Women's Wrestling Revolutions and the Impact Wrestlings and Girl Fight and WSU and Shine and Shimmer and Rise and da-da-da-da-da-da. They're going to go to all of those other little places that have supported that for a long time. If anything, I would say, give TNA / Impact Wrestling credit. That was one of the first places I had ever seen that took the women from the independent circuit and gave them the opportunity to perform on a national stage that the WWE just simply would not. The WWE was just, still hiring models and, that we'll train you later. Basically the same theory that WoW had originally. We'll hire you and we'll train you. We'll train you later. If you want to be a wrestler, and you can make the cut, we'll train you to perform. But meanwhile, like I said, you go back in that early phase of TNA. Yes, now granted, it wasn't an all-women show, but You wouldn't have an Angelina Love. You wouldn't have a Velvet Sky. You possibly wouldn't have a Gail Kim, because I think she was ready to quit the business after WWE let her go. You wouldn't have, possibly an Awesome Kong as she exists in the United States. So it is very, I don't want to. I was about to say arrogant, and that's the wrong term. I don't want to use that term. That's mean. So let me retract that. I think it ignores. That's probably the better way to put it. It ignores a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of resources spent from all these promoters out there who are not billionaires. They don't have some unlimited supply of money that they can throw at, having a women's wrestling promotion. But they do it anyway because they wanted to support it. WSU up in the Northeast, like they've been doing this thing for a while. Shimmer, when the Mae Young Classic rolls around, whose footage do they pick up? They pick up the Shimmer's footage because they had practically every name of women's wrestling that has walked into every major name that has walked into a wrestling ring over the past 10, 15 years. So, so to say that, oh yeah, without Jeannie Buss, who knows what the world of women's wrestling would be right now. I was like, it'd be fine. You see, it would still be what it is. Yeah, some of them would not be making a living at it, but I'm not sure if they necessarily. I mean, it's a great supplement to the income to be at WOW. I don't know if they have a living at it yet. Very likely they will because if WOW's on national TV and if they continue on, the checks will go up, or at least they should. And if they're not going to give them the bigger paychecks, then shame on you. But there's other names out there that have gone and pushed and elevated and maintained the world of women's wrestling before Jeannie Buss threw in, a blank check to get WOW up and running and give them, the best facilities and this, that, and the other. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great that Jeannie Buss does that. It's great that Jeannie Buss believes in the product. It's great that Jeannie Buss is willing to support it and willing to own it and have her own little, slice of the wrestling world, so to speak. But her being the savior of women's wrestling, I do have a hard time taking. And I'm sure if this gets back to WOW or whomever else that's on there and they have some words, listen, feel free to contact me. The contact information is the same. If you want to straighten me out and tell me, oh, well, that's not true and this is why, I'm all for it, man. I'm open to an open debate. It ain't got to be mean-spirited, nothing like that. I'm open to an open debate. Just, hey, just let me know. But bear in mind, when I say that, I do say it with these, not terms, but I do say it recognizing this scenario. Where, when WOW was still searching to be a television show, those places were still pushing the women. And yes, it wasn't on TV. It wasn't on streaming services because they didn't exist yet. It wasn't on, some platform that the world could see, but they still gave them something. So I think there lies some of the real underlying heroes as far as that is concerned. But I'm willing to debate that position. Anyhow, so that's it, folks. That is the full review plus a little extra bonus stuff there, talking about Gina. I wasn't intending on going into that and whatnot, but it just turned into it just because I happened to come across that clip beforehand, and I was like, ooh, I disagree with that. But tell me what you think. Leave your comments or send me the message. Again, You can leave them if you're on YouTube. Just leave your comments in the comment section. If you are listening to this in any MP3 downloadable or streaming podcast format and you're not on YouTube, you can go to our Facebook page and you can send a message there and I will get to it. Or you can message me directly, which is what I was about to say. You can message me directly at mrgreen75@hotmail.com, and I will read those questions / comments on the air as I did earlier in the show, and we will address it. And also be sure to check that poll. What did you think of the show? Yes or no, yay or nay? How did you like it? Was it really, really good, or did it stink? Whatever, that those are the options right now. Which one which category did you fall into? And also, if you are looking to give support to some of those smaller level women's promotions, such as, I'm not going to say promotions, smaller levels of women's scenes like ours, because, we haven't promoted a full show yet. And I say yet because I'm really strongly thinking about it. But that's a whole different issue. If you want to give support to that, then you can do so by subscribing right now. Hit that subscribe button. Click the bell if you're on YouTube. Subscribe to wherever you may download the podcast. Go to our Instagram. Go to our Facebook. Go to wherever we have any version of social media and support, like, follow, subscribe. Do what you have to do to let us know, because the numbers always mean a lot. I have found that the investors / supporters / people that want to buy in and stuff like that, they look at it, and once they see it, it's like, oh man, you have people that actually care about women's wrestling. So if you care about it and you want to see some more, you want to see some of the names that we've presented on the show, and you want to see us book them into something, because like I say, I'm strongly considering gathering that together. Your Brooklyn Creeds, your Crystal Roses, your Double D Roses, and Aja Pereira's, Duchess, Azali, who should be making a comeback, and so on and so forth. You want to see us do any of that stuff? Like the channel. Like, subscribe, share, all of that stuff. And lastly, I think we will also put up get back into the Patreon thing. Patreon, and $2. That is going to be the high of the high. It's going to be $2. $1.99, $2, whatever the case be. That is all you need to do to support this channel. And with that, we'll come up with some cool prizes, maybe some shirts and extra content and what have you. I'm going to have to talk over it with the team, and we'll see what we can come up with. So that's it, folks. That is the review. That is everything. Leave your comments, questions, blah, blah, blah below, or send me the message. And with that, this is Mr. Green saying so long, everybody, and we will see you on the next go-round.